Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. Hope you're all well and safe. I wanted to see how good the watercolor engine was in Adobe Fresco. I've used it before, but now I've used Rebel. I wanted to see how that sort of natural engine where the paint flows together works in Adobe Fresco, and I've got Rebel to compare it against. So this is a watercolor that I did in Adobe Fresco, the free version, by the way. So let's just see how I got on with it. So, third painting in a row on my iPad. Now, on the PC, I've now got Rebel 3, which gives you this really cool watercolor engine where the paint flows dramatically together. Now on the iPad, Adobe Fresco does a very similar thing, and as you can see now, as I'm putting these colours on, look how they bleed together. So they continue to work once you've applied the colour that bleeds into the existing colour that you've already put on. Very similar to an actual watercolour paint. So I thought, well, I'm missing Rebel because I haven't done anything on it for a day or two. I'll give this one a go. I've used it before. I've done a video on it quite a while ago, I think. And this is the free version. There's no subscriptions. You don't have to pay for this. It's totally free. And I'm using what's called the live brush. As you can see there on the icon, it's the second one down. And I am just sort of putting some wash colours on there, and they bleed together really, really well. I love that effect. So I'm just sort of getting colour over the whole of the canvas. I've not really explored papers. I don't know if you can put like a watercolour paper behind this, which would be really cool. I haven't tried that. If you could put that in the comments, that would be cool. I've just sort of opened it up and started painting using that brush. You can see I've got it on a particular layer. You can dry these layers as well. You can click on the little layer icon, and right at the very bottom there's an option to dry that layer. So once the paint has flowed out as much as you like, you're good to go. You can dry it. Now I'm using the splatter brush now, and you can change the size. I'm not convinced of the search engine for this. I do feel that it's a bit kind of PC based, where you've got all these menu options down the side and you have to click on them to open things out. It's not quite as intuitive, perhaps. Scaling up your brush size is quite fiddly. Changing the colours is quite fiddly compared to, say, Procreate. But having said that, look at this. Look, the colours just fuse together. I've got them on their own layer now. So this is the second layer so that they don't bleed into that wash underneath. Because if I hadn't dried the wash underneath and tried to put this spatter colour on, it would bleed straight into it. So I thought that would be, using that spatter brush, it would be a cool way to get these leaves on really, really quick. And maybe even some of the shadows in the foreground, I could use it for that as well. So at this point, I'm really impressed with the way the colours flow together. And I like that splatter brush and the way those colours bleed together as well. But the actual regular watercolor brush, I'm not so keen on. I like the wash brush, the flat wash brush. That's nice. That gives you a really cool watercolor effect where those colors just bleed in. Look how they're just sort of all diffusing together. But the fine brush, it just looks digital. It is not anything like a watercolor, and you'll see that in the finished painting. Now, if I'd have put a textured paper over it, and if I'd have put my own texture paper and change the blend mode to that and put that over it, it might have looked totally different, I guess, but I wasn't overly convinced with it. But this is an experiment. I'm just sort of playing around on my iPad again, trying out the brushes, seeing what they can do, and I'm, quite happy with the finished result. It does look a little bit mechanical. It's not out there with Rebel. It's not. It's nowhere near as good as that. But I'm using the free version. I'm not, I have to pay for this. I don't know what features they are in the paid version, how much better it is. But I was able to export it as a JPEG, a PNG. So there's lots of options with it. I didn't see any real need to subscribe. Not that I'm ever going to subscribe to Adobe's system. I haven't got the budget for that. But I do like the way those colours just sort of diffuse together and blend away. Look at that. I'm sort of adding the wash brush, and that merges with the splatter colours that I've already put on. I have to say, you get longer to blend colours together in this app than you do in real life using paint. You wouldn't have had that long, but I do like that effect. That is a really cool effect, I have to say. So I pretty much use all of the watercolour brushes. There's four, I think, 4 different brushes. There's a fine detail brush, a wash brush, a flat wash brush, and then a spatter. Is that 4 or 5? I'm not sure. But I pretty much use them all. If I'm doing sort of big tree chunks or the big washes, I'm using the wash brushes, obviously. And then when I go into the detail, I'm using that fine brush. And that fine brush didn't cut it for me. It just felt like I was using a digital ink pen rather than a watercolor brush. Although the colors do flow when you touch that fine brush into wet color, you do get that nice sort of diffused effect look where it blends in. Do like that. That is nice. So this scene was it was actually outside the Guildhall in Derby, again before the lockdown, way before the lockdown. And there was a bunch of students that every single one of them had got their iPhone out. And I thought, oh my God, the world's falling apart. Why is everybody on their iPhone? But in actual fact, what they were doing, they was following some sort of trail set out by the Derby City Council, I guess, where they got all these markers, and you could get the app, follow and look for these markers and things, and then you would find facts and historical facts about the city and interesting stories and things. So it was a sort of a trail of Derby City. So I forgave them for being engrossed in their phones and not enjoying the beauty of those trees and the dappled light on the pavement that the leaves are creating. And I'm looking at that picture now and I'm thinking, minimalist wise, that's finished. I could call that done. What do you think? Comments below. See, I would really be interested to see if you would consider that a finished painting, because the finished one really is, in my opinion, overworked. And I think I like what I'm looking at now more than the finish, because I'm looking at the finished result next to it on my PC and I'm liking that. I think that I should have stopped there. That's a nice little study of some trees. But let's press on. I am going to have to speed this up a bit because, again, it was quite a long video. So let me just whiz it forward a little bit. wanted to slow this bit down because, as you can see, I'm working on the highlights in the tree. So I've now got 4 layers, and I created a new layer so I could use a light colour and put in some highlights on top of those existing trees. Now, if I was doing this on a proper watercolour or a regular watercolour painting, I will be using gouache, a really opaque colour, to block out that dark colour underneath. You couldn't be doing it with watercolour because watercolour is transparent. So it's not cheating doing this digitally like this, but at this point I'm calling the painting mixed media because it's not strictly watercolour in the sense that you're painting dark over light all the time. I'm now going in painting light colours over the dark colours, which is, you know, a regular technique, but purist watercolour painters would frown on it. They wouldn't be too happy. And you can see that I've got like little groups of people painted in there, painted really abstract, not a lot of detail going off, all in silhouette, whether it be the sort of backgrounds in silhouette or the background around them sort of pushing them, highlighting them, or they're like the couple on the left that are just absolutely in silhouette. And I'm using that gouache technique again to get some highlights in that foreground. And I keep looking at this painting and I wonder why I don't stop at any point along this way. That could be a finished painting. That could be a finished painting now. And I think I should have stopped there. And second place, I could have stopped. And I've got a finished painting. But no, I have to keep going. Maybe what I should start doing, you know, is exporting a JPEG or a PNG file at these points where I think that's looking all right, but I just want to do this. And at that point, I should export a JPEG. Then I can look back like here and say, you know what, that is the best out of the 3. That's the one I'm going to use as my finished painting. But I don't do that. And I just keep wading on and only ever do the export right at the very end, like you would with a conventional painting. And I'm missing a trick because the whole point of digital is you can just click of a finger, you can create a finished image and then work on a copy, what's essentially a copy. I've just had a eureka moment. I've never ever considered doing that before. Why have I never done that? That would makes so much sense. Perhaps I should start doing that. And then I could show you at the end of the video, I could show you maybe 3 or 4 paintings and say, which one do you like best? What do you think? Is that a good idea? I don't know. It sounds a good idea in theory, and maybe I should be doing that. And I'm looking at this painting now and I'm thinking, you know what? You see that light in the trees? I should have reflected some of that onto the pavement. That light green, that should be reflected on the pavement. And if you look closely at the photograph, you can see it. And I didn't do that. I know I didn't do that. And I missed that. I should have done that. That's another flaw with this painting. But, you know, I wasn't intending this to be a piece of art or a finished painting. I was just messing about. I was just sort of dabbling and experimenting with the Adobe Fresco just to see what you could do with it. Rather than concentrating on the painting, I was actually concentrating on the app, much more so than the actual painting. That's my excuse, so I shall stick with that, I think. But a little bit of green in there, in what I'm putting in now, if I'd have used a more yellowy colour, I think would have been nicer. I'm convinced I'm going to put those blue boards in. And you know what? Okay, so they're in the photograph. But it does not need to be in that painting. It doesn't need to be in there. I am going to fast forward a bit and see what happens, because there's still a fair bit to go. So that's pushed the painting forward quite a lot. You can see I've got way more detail in there. And looking at that couple on the left-hand side, they've almost disappeared. So I was right. I'm absolutely convinced that I should not have put that blue in, the building detail behind that. That adds nothing to the painting except to distract from that couple, which were probably the focal point. And I've spoiled a painting, definitely spoiled a painting in my opinion. At that stage I could go back, because I see I've got lots of layers in there, and I could go back and clean that all up and make it a much nicer painting again. But do I want to at this point? It was not really meant to be a finished painting as such. It was just an exercise in using fresco, and maybe that says a lot for Adobe Fresco, that I got so engrossed in it and I just kept painting because I like fiddling around with it, that it's a nice little app. It is definitely a nice app to use and a freebie, so one to add to your collection if you want to paint in that sort of conventional watercolor way where the colors flow together. This is a good option on the iPad, except that fine detail brush is a bit crap. That's not so good, and I don't like that quite as much. So I'm still working on this. What is the matter with me? What is the matter with me? I know I'm going to draw a few little highlights in just to try and bring these figures out a little bit. That's what I'm going to do. Probably does help a little bit, but I think at this point I've gone past it being a decent painting to being way too overworked. So there's a lesson to be learned there. Don't overwork your paintings and keep evaluating it, and you don't need to overwork things. I just thinking back at when I just got those 3 trees, that was a really nice little painting, and now I've got this really cluttered mess. Oh well, you can't win them all, and I'm glad I've shared this with you, because you do see that sometimes it can go pear-shaped. It's not dire. Well, it is dire, I suppose. It's pretty dire, isn't it? I'd call that one dire. But anyway, there you go. The Fresco app. Nice little app. Well worth trying out. I do recommend it. But don't get too excited like I did and overwork it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, big thumbs up, as always, is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I've got lots of videos like this. I'd love to be sharing them with you. Don't forget, everybody, stay safe, stay sane, and keep painting. And hopefully I will see you all in the next one. Bye.